Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. Good to be with you. We got a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day. I got my dear friend, David Shuster, TYT contributor, and the bullpen, Amber Athey, Washington editor at The Spectator and co-host of O'Connor and Company. She wants to talk about the Freedom Convoy. Should be interesting. Top story of the day. The most perverted and disgusting teacher and cop you will ever see in your natural life. Let's put up a mug shot. She's pleaded guilty because she's a monster. What did this teacher do? She has pleaded guilty to disturbing child sex crimes, including lacing cupcakes with her husband's sperm, and he was down with it, by the way, before feeding them to her students. That's the husband. He's a former deputy sheriff. Cynthia Perkins, let's go back to her. Cynthia Perkins, 36 years of age, is facing 41 years in prison after taking a plea deal on Monday in exchange for testifying against her now ex-husband, Dennis Perkins. This has a long and twisted, dark history. Mr. Perkins, the deputy sheriff, was working at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, all right, at the time of his arrest. The Louisiana woman initially protested her innocence to 72 charges for various sex crimes, yet this week pleaded guilty to producing child pornography, second-degree rape, and mingling harmful substances. The charge about harmful substances allegedly refers to an incident in which this sick woman used her husband's sperm to season pastries for Westside Junior High School students. Listen, I know this story is a hard story to listen to. I'm highlighting this story because parents in particular, we need to always be reminded that real monsters exist in the world. These are two of them. The story gets even deeper. These three we thought were representative of what she had done, and by agreeing to the facts as we put them out on record, she prepared herself to testify against Dennis Perkins. That's according to the Assistant Louisiana Attorney General, Barry Milligan. Barry said that on Monday. Cynthia and Dennis Perkins were arrested in October 2019. They faced 150 felony charges, including rape, child pornography, sexual battery of a child, and video voyeurism. There were also charges related to a dog, according to Daily Star. So Cynthia files for divorce. So you have the wife, she files for divorce and resigned from her role as a high school teacher. They allowed her to resign rather than making an example of her. She claimed she was manipulated by her then husband to commit the horrible crimes. Oh, I'm the victim here, was her story. WBRZ reports Dennis Perkins was fired from the sheriff's department after the charges were brought. Now remember, they were under investigation, then the charges hit, and that's when they start losing and resigning from their jobs. So Cynthia Perkins was scheduled to face a trial by jury on Monday, which means the victims, these minors, which by the way are under 13 years of age, would have had to testify in the court of law. She was facing 72 years in prison. However, 68 of the remaining charges against her were dropped when she took a plea deal. She was given 40 years for second-degree rape, 30 years concurrent for sex crimes involving a juvenile under 13. That horrible human being will die in prison. Sperm-laced cupcakes incident hit her with 1 year sentence, all right? She got 1 year for that one. She has no possibility of parole after taking the deal, according to the Attorney General of the state. He said, and I quote, "Today, Cynthia Perkins admitted to her crimes and pled guilty in court." The AG further noted, she not only waived any right to appeal and attempt to avoid conviction, but she also spared the victims, talking about the children, from reliving her horrific crimes during this particular trial. Conviction is in the best interest of our victims and justice. We look forward to holding Dennis Perkins, the cop, accountable for his crimes in the very near future, because Dennis Perkins has pleaded not guilty, which means if he goes to trial and his wife has already agreed to testify against him, his ex-wife, he goes to trial, those children, by law, they have to take the stand because he has a constitutional right to approach those that accuse him. Yet they eventually agreed to a deal which was also okayed by the victim's family, talking about the ex-wife. They feel that this serves justice and better protects their children, said the Attorney General. If the victim's family, if they are okay with this, that's cool. You always look to that, okay? Now, let's keep it all the way 100. Routinely, individuals who are monsters and perverts against our children in particular, they seek opportunities to affix their lives around children. They also look for opportunities to have public trust, so that if there's an accusation against them, people in the community would say, oh no, never that person. I mean, that's an upstanding deputy sheriff. That's an award-winning school teacher. They're monsters all along. And let's be real, they have the complexion for protection. According to the narrative, they've been doing this for years and getting away with it. They're sick, and what they're getting, they don't deserve. They don't deserve the light sentencing of life in prison or to die behind bars, the way they victimize children. Now these victims, they're gonna have to go through counseling, years of torment, years of pain. I'm hopeful that whatever comes out of this, as it relates to a settlement, as it relates to a lawsuit, that they are able to get the wraparound services they need because they were victimized by these two individuals who were paid by taxpayers. David, what are your thoughts about this case?
I'm just horrified, and you took the words, I mean, literally My concern is, look, clearly these are monsters. Clearly these are despicable people. I hope they are locked up. I agree that this seems like a light sentence. My concern in hearing this is for the kids. I mean, what is Louisiana, which is not known for being particularly good in trying to provide counseling and trying to help victims of crime, particularly if they're minorities. I mean, what are they doing for these kids to try to help them? I mean, that's where all of the focus and the resources in Louisiana should be. Throw away the key on these two jerks. But the kids, I mean, what are you doing to talk to them? How are you explaining this to them? What are you doing to make them somehow feel better? And again, I'm shocked also, just 1 year for the cupcake. I mean, can you imagine if a kid had done the reverse to a white teacher? You think that kid would have gotten away with just a year, maybe? No, that kid would have been sent to juvenile detention for a long time. So none of this makes much sense to me. And I just pray that there are people who are looking after those kids.
You got to remember, David, these people are psychopaths. I mean, this is textbook definition psychopathic behavior. One was a school teacher, the other was a cop. All right, sit on that for a minute. Okay. Young black woman begged for her life for 16 hours straight. Told the jail authorities, I need medical help. They ignored her, said she was faking. She died. We have an update to this story. Audio released last month revealed 23-year-old Ta'neasha Chappell of Louisiana begged jail staffers for medical assistance. Here's some of that.
Yes.
Need help.
What?
Need help.
What do you need help with?
My stomach.
What?
My stomach.
With your what? Your stomach?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what you want me to do unless you're coughing up something crazy. What's up?
I need to go to the hospital.
You gotta go to the bathroom.
I need to go to the hospital.
To the hospital?
Yes.
What's wrong?
I'm throwing up blood.
I know.
I'm throwing up blood.
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I'm calling my sergeant. I spoke to the sergeant. He said that the nurse will see you in the morning.
I'm throwing up in my sleep.
What's your name?
Chappell.
Alrighty.
I need help. I need help.
What's up?
Do you not see that we got a naked lady on the floor in here?
Give me just a second.
Okay, I guess she's trying to get your guys' attention again. Do it. The black girl. What's she doing?
Well, if she needs something, she'll have to hit the button. Yeah.
Can you help me out of time?
Huh?
Can you help me out of time? I just need help. Can you help me, please?
She begged for her life, 16 hours. Not one person in the chain of command who are sworn to uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, to protect and serve. Not one person said, you know, Miss Chappell has been begging for her life for 16 hours. Maybe we need to allow her to see a medical physician. Not one person. One person. This story has more twists and turns. In an exclusive video obtained by Wave 3 News, let's put up some of those screenshots. This is her in the cell. It's important we understand the systemic failures, the racism, the inequity, the bias, and the systemic oppression all involved in the death of a human being. She was laying in her cell room for hours in obvious pain, crying for help for 16 hours straight. She had on no clothes. At one point, she falls and she hits her head on the metal top bunk. They initially said, oh no, she almost hit her head. She collapses 4 times. They see this all on video. But her cries for help and other obvious distress, in her obvious distress state, were ignored. And they said that she was in fact faking it. For nearly 16 hours, Ta'neasha Chappell pleaded with the staff of the Jackson County, Indiana jail for medical care. She repeatedly vomited blood, became dehydrated, requested several times to be taken to the hospital. But as Chappell's pleas grew more anguished, the guards on duty got more irritated. The audio recordings from the jail proved this. Chappell, 23 years of age, was in the custody of the Jackson County Jail in Brownstown, Indiana, about 50 miles north of Louisville, on charges stemming from an alleged May 26 theft and high-speed chase when she died July 16th at a nearby hospital. And those SOBs that you heard on that recording are the ones who killed her, or they are responsible for her death. In December, the prosecutor, Jeffrey Chalfant, declined to bring criminal charges against any of the jail employees for Chappell's death. A 15-page report by the Indiana State Police determined no one was criminally liable for her death. The attorney for the family provided the recordings from the jail in the hours leading up to her death. Most of the clips are Chappell imploring jail staff to help. Though some involved in her incarcerated, though some involve other incarcerated women asking for help on her behalf. Even though Chalfant declined to prosecute, the attorney for the family hopes the recordings prompt federal officials to take a deeper look at the jail. Less than a month after her death, Joshua McLemore, also a prisoner of that same jail, died. He was released to a hospital August 8th and died 2 days later after being diagnosed with severe conditions, including low oxygen levels, deteriorating muscle tissue, and kidney failure. He's dead too. A previous Courier Journal investigation found the jail had a long history of overcrowding, accusations of medical negligence, and previous in-custody deaths in 2020. Staff eventually called EMS to the jail, where they found Ms. Chappell lying prone on a bedroll on a cell floor. At 3:26 p.m., EMS took Chappell to the medical center at 3:52 p.m. and she died there less than 2 hours later. The police made no findings, no conclusions, and this was part of the prosecution's theory here, saying, well, the police made no conclusions as to the death. It added that an autopsy found the cause was probable toxicity with an unknown substance. Notes from an ER report previously stated there was concern the patient may be ingested ethylene glycol or methanol. But the prosecutor's new report said initial forensic lab test results did not reveal any positive findings of significance as far as toxins in her body. Chappell's family has filed a federal lawsuit against the Jackson County Sheriff Rick Meyer, jail commander Chris Everhart, and 7 other jail employees. The suit remains open and ongoing. They killed this woman. Now, let's bring the humanity back in this, okay? You know, if those employees looked at her as a human being, and a human being is saying, I need medical attention, I'm throwing up blood, and your response is, well, let me call my sergeant. Sergeant gets a phone call, hey Sarge, there's a person throwing up blood, I'm looking at them on the video, they've been in distress for hours, what should I do? She'll see the nurse in the morning. The lack of humanity. You see, that's extreme and gross negligence. That's criminal. That's criminal, damn it. And every single one of them should have their asses locked up. Now we're gonna follow this story. And we're gonna bring you names. We're gonna bring you information until there is justice in this story. They committed conspiracy murder. David, what are your thoughts here?
Well, this one is personally humiliating to me because I grew up in southern Indiana, in Monroe County, which is only about 45 minutes away from Jackson County. And while Monroe County, we were always taught was progressive, we were taught in schools, you look out for your fellow human beings, your strangers, regardless of their race, their color, their ethnicity, their gender. You treat everybody as if they're your own brother or sister. But we were warned, even in a progressive place like Monroe County, there's still some pockets of Indiana where people don't feel that way. And to me, here we are now, 50 years after I, first moved to Indiana, 50 years, there's still places in southern Indiana, which isn't poor. It's not poverty. They have plenty of resources in the state prison and the local jails. The fact that people would look at somebody who's in pain, who is dying, and not consider them to be a human being is so beyond humiliating and embarrassing and frankly terrifying.
All right, I concur. Okay, there's a judge. This particular judge routinely mocked individuals in her courtroom, created memes. These memes and pictures and these text messages and emails all had racist overtones and undertones. They were bigoted, they were rude, they showed she had bias. Let's put up a picture of the judge. This is in Maricopa County, Arizona. A Maricopa County Superior Court judge and her staff mocked and ridiculed people during hearings and trials by routinely emailing each other cruel and obscene statements, jokes, and memes. The conduct happened in major felony cases, including high-profile murders. Let me give you some background to this judge and how extreme her behavior was and the ineffectiveness as it relates to holding her accountable. Okay, she's being protected. Emails and internal records obtained by ABC 15 show no one was off limits. Defendants, their families, jurors, witnesses, attorneys, even other court employees and top court officials were all part of this back and forth. They talked about everybody. The judge, her name is Erin O'Brien Otis. We got some extreme information here, not only about her behavior and the behavior of her staff, but also the oversight committee for judges decided to do nothing, and then they reported nothing to the bar. Well, after this segment, something will be reported to the bar. Here's some background, all right? ABC 15 has independently verified many of the allegations in the complaint filed with the commission. And that's your oversight committee for judges. The station obtained a collection of emails and memes sent from 2017 through 2019. Now remember, this is not all of them. This is what they have on the record confirmed. In addition to sworn statements and courtroom videos, many former staff members have come forward. In addition to the memes and emails mocking people in court, it stated Otis and her staff manipulated the judicial performance review process, had daily ex parte communications with defendants, and even held a birthday party for the son of a 6-time convicted defendant before his sentencing. On September 7th, 2017, this is one example. Juror number 30 was embarrassed. She was seated with dozens of potential jurors during selection from a 2-week-long trial, as Judge Otis asked if anyone had any physical conditions that would make it difficult to complete their duty. Juror number 30 spoke up. Juror number 30 said, and I quote, "My condition is embarrassing. I don't really want to." Otis responded, "Okay. Do you want to talk in private?" ? After the courtroom was cleared of jurors, the woman told Judge Otis, court staff and attorneys that she had a medical condition that gave her heavy and uncontrollable periods, making it impossible to sit through a trial that long. The judge thanked the woman, dismissed her from the jury, said no jury duty for you. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I don't want to put you in any situation where you are going to feel uncomfortable or anything like that, according to the judge. What jury number 30 did not know is that the bailiff, Barbara Chavez, was busy finding a cruel graphic. Here's the graphic. Yeah, it gets deeper. There's more. Arizona's judicial ethics rules state that judges, and I quote, shall perform the duties of judicial office, including administrative duties, without bias or prejudice. That rule also applies to everybody on their staff. There's more. While a collection of emails obtained by ABC 15 show that the judge's bailiff initiated many of the memes, the judge did respond and participate. On October 11, 2018, Judge Otis first initiated this email chain about what a defense attorney was wearing. Here it is. This is during court, okay? They're talking about the cellulite of an attorney in their courtroom during court. Now remember, there are over 80 of these. We don't have every single one of them for this segment, don't have a long enough show to do it. But all of these were horrific. Some of them even racist. There's more. Chavez and Otis exchanged multiple emails regarding the appearance of people in a defendant's family. Here's what they put up. What is this chick in the wheelchair doing with her hands? I can't see. At one point, I thought I saw her looking at the jurors with her hands in a praying motion. I need to nip that in the bud. Can you keep an eye on her? My line of sight is blocked. Then the response is, John's family looked like they came from the movie The Hills Have Eyes. Now remember, judicial code of conduct, they gotta be impartial, non-biased. Experts say they believe the State Bar Arizona should have investigated this to determine her fitness as an attorney, which is correct. State Bar should have investigated all of these. Plenty of evidence is all on the record. A formal investigation happened through the oversight committee, but officials from the bar said, hey, we were never notified of any of this, which is a violation of policy. The Commission on Judicial Conduct did not send us any information related to their investigation of Judge Aaron Otis. But guess who's sending them one today? Me. They will get one officially today. This whole story is going to the bar. But she released a lengthy statement talking about the judge, saying through a spokesperson, I've always tried to act with integrity, and she takes full responsibility for what happened. Well, good for you, because that's what's about to happen. Full responsibility will take place here, all right? David, all of this is happening during court. You have a judge that's obviously not fair, not playing by the rules, holding ex parte communications, having parties with people she should never have birthday parties for. And it's been going on for years.
This is about integrity, and integrity is not just what you do when you're in court or when you're on camera or when you're on the record. It's about what you do when you're just with your colleagues, when you're away from folks. Are you talking about other people? Are you joking about other people? Look, all of us, I'm sure all of us have made a mistake at some point in our life where we've said something that we thought was funny that really wasn't, that was inappropriate. But there's a difference between doing it once or twice and doing it 80 times. And there's absolutely no reason this woman should be on the bench. Any kind of judge, she shouldn't be dog catcher where she lives. This is outrageous.
Yeah, it is. And the fact that they tried to cover this up, there's a formal complaint, there's an investigation. The oversight committee investigates. They find the evidence to be credible. And what do? Instead of having an adverse judgment against her, instead of any discipline against her, they decide to not even report it to the bar for that state in order to make sure that she does not get her bar license suspended or revoked. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay. The concept of the Young Turks means the audience They are the young Turks. They are the go-getters. They are the ones making the emphatic change happen in their local community. The reality is that we've always, young and the not so young, we've always cared about news. But when you do not see the messengers of the news look like you, when they do not share your experiences, exposures, and environment, and there's a disconnect between you and the news. I lecture in mass communications. One thing I tell all of my students, there is no such thing as non-biased news. It never has been. Non-biased news has always been an illusion. Let's go back to the 60s and 70s, where people would say that was the purity of non-biased news. News has a segment. That segment has a time. That time, you must do your story and be finished. That means the producer, the writer, the orator has to take out what they don't think is important and only leave in what they believe is important. They have a limited time to tell the story. They do not have time to tell everybody's version or everybody's side. And they get to choose the facts that they bring to you, as well as the nuance, which really is a word for opinion, that they bring to you, the context they bring to you. So we've always had a level of bias in news. Here's the issue. The issue is to not deceive individuals as if you don't have some level of opinion with your news commentary. And that's what TYT has never done. They've always been authentic in their approach to progressive ideology and their news analysis and political breakdown. And I think that's how you actually win the heart and soul of individuals who are consuming information from you, because now they see themselves in you.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not gonna wanna lose, and he's gonna run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's a little bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
No, but
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
All right, welcome back. We still got a lot of show left. Before I go to these amazing, and I mean amazing, comments, let me remind everyone of a few things. Number one, every day, the watch list, all right? J.R. Jackson, live weekdays, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Find out all the stories that you need to pay attention to. News, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. The Big Homie covers a lot of ground. This is a new 10-week test series on TYT. Make sure to support. A few ways to do it. Always watch live, and don't forget to subscribe and follow at youtube.com/watchlistTYT and facebook.com/watchlistTYT. Also, we got a petition, okay? These petitions are important because it shows public sentiment. It helps us rally behind a particular issue. This is important. We need your help. We just need 10,000 signatures. We can do that today, all right? We need 10,000 signatures for a movement to stop using DNA against sexual assault victims. Not only could this be a violation of constitutional protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, but it can also discourage sexual assault victims from reporting crime. Now, what are the stats? The stats already show over 90% of sexual assault crimes aren't reported already, all right? Sign the petition, San Francisco Police Crime Lab and all local and federal police crime labs must stop entering sexual assault victims' DNA into a database. Gotta stop doing that. They committed no crime, all right? Go to tyt.com/petitions, tyt.com/petitions. Don't forget, we're celebrating 20 years at TYT. We got a 20% site-wide discount, shop tyt.com. For an added bonus, we dropped 2 new designs, 20th anniversary merch and canvas 2022, all right? Don't forget impacts. Here at TYT, we spent the past 20 years building a progressive change machine, and we kept a record of it, all right? So you can see our impact on policy, candidates, issues, and more. With support and engagement from you, the TYT community, we set out to make change happen, and that's exactly what we've done. Driving positive change is the foundation of our mission. I want you to take some time, go to tyt.com/impacts, tyt.com/impacts, all right? Let me read some of these comments. Me can see the silver-haired dragon. Oh my God, I hope they were tested for STDs. You know, that's a practical observation. It's a damn shame that's even a discussion. Lynch says in my school district, teachers can't serve any unpackaged foods, but I don't think they thought anyone would do something like this, WTF, yeah? All right, I am Sock says, I don't like judging by appearance, but what the F if that judge was presiding over my case? Shikata Ganai Beer Dragon says, full responsibility is best shown by resigning from the bench and surrendering your law license. That is full responsibility. Agreed. Forbesilla, the fact that they both were 100% like, yes, this is a great idea, is really effed up. Yep. Rose Rosa says, these children will have trust issues for a very long time, if not forever. That's right. Okay, Michael Norrish, that phone call talking about the intercom was horrible. How do you see and hear those cries without recognizing another human being needs help? That was BS. Wake up, you have the requirement to protect those under your care. That's very true, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Ridiculous!
You hear that?
Come on! Somebody pick up your phone!
Not Walmart. That's Walmart. We're at Walmart.
Yes, customer service over here now! I'm waiting on our receipt. I've been waiting for 20 minutes. Nobody is helping me. Yeah, let's go get my receipt. Get the receipt and I'll get down. My time is worth more than yours. Let's go.
That part, you see, that part right there, that last statement, my time is worth more than yours. Let's go. That's why you are a top tier Karen. This particular Karen believes that those who work in that industry, in service related industries, they're making sure that you can get your things, right? Your shopping. She thinks her time is more valuable than anyone else's. You know, all of us have been in situations where we were at a store shopping and we needed someone to help us, and we could not find a person at that moment. We've never acted like that. None of us have ever stepped on top of a checkout device and start screaming at everybody in the damn store. First of all, it takes less energy just to find somebody else in another department and say, hey, can you help me over here? I'm trying to check out. But no. She's better than everybody, according to her and according to the sentiment she expressed. I want to say this very clearly. At Indisputable, we stand with those who work in various industries, obviously service industries included. Those who are in customer service, you got a hard job. I've been there before. I worked in customer service myself. I used to be a cashier. I've waited tables. I've done all of that. And I know what you go through, all right? But just know that there are people out here like myself and David and others who care about you, care about your well-being, and they will always support you. And I just want you to feel the love from us to you. Don't let people like this ruin your day, all right? David, thoughts here?
Well, I think one other person who clearly cares is the person who was sharp enough to go ahead and start filming this, right? Because there's so little sometimes that we feel we can do when somebody is losing their mind or acting inappropriately or being racist or demeaning to people. But just pulling out your phone and recording, that is crucial these days, because what's gonna happen now is this woman's gonna be identified. She may lose her job. She probably deserves to lose her job. And she's gonna be taught a very harsh lesson about what happens when you get publicly humiliated thanks to the internet. And so again, for so many of us who feel powerless against the jerks around us, if you've got some courage and you can pull out that phone and start recording and you post it on social media, that's great. It's a great first step.
Yeah, it's actually it was part of the strategy of Dr. King. Dr. King wanted media presence at protest because he wanted America to be forced to see what America looks like, all right? He wanted that mirror, all right? And that's what social media helps provide. Anti-Karens unite.
You're screaming at employees at Walmart. Get out of here.
Not racist.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
The United States doesn't have an official language, jackass.
Well, Mark Warmler, I'm starting my clock here, so I'll stay the exact 2 minutes.
I'm sorry,
And
sir. Sir, I need you to put on your mask.
Should I stop my clock? I can't. Presidents Biden and JB Pritzker both speak without a mask. Can I? And I do have an exemption. Will you allow me to speak? And please,
I'm sorry,
I'm not going to interrupt you when you speak.
I'm sorry, sir. It's the rule. You're gonna need to keep your mask on.
I have an exemption. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole thing about explaining to you. I don't even know you guys, and I don't want to explain my medical situation. And I thought I'd be allowed to speak. Can I restart my clock? I'm at 38
you can stop your
seconds
clock
now.
for a second if you could just give me 1 moment.
I mean, I'm at 41 seconds and I'm 2 lines into my speech.
Sir, we'll start your clock again. Don't worry.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry about your clock for the moment. Okay, we'll come.
Well, I'm nervous because you're telling me I can't speak. I'm ready to speak.
We need you to have you put on your mask, sir. We have to follow the rule.
I can't speak with my mask on. I can't articulate. I have a medical. You're not going to honor medical and
religious
exemptions?
No, if you have a medical exemption, okay, that's fine, sir.
I'm embarrassed. It's humiliating for me.
Oh, there's more. Now, if you notice behind this male Karen, everybody has on the mask. As a matter of fact, he had on the mask as well. He did not take his mask off until he got to the podium because he respected the rules of the facility until it was time for him to talk. Now he wants to violate the rules, but here's what happened. There's an anti-Karen in particular, but really, this whole building is anti-Karen. Here it is.
Can I reset my clock?
Just start again. Go ahead, sir.
I'm resetting to 2 minutes.
You're going to let him speak without a mask?
Okay.
Well, he's got a medical exemption.
Now he's interrupting me. I mean, you guys are rude.
How do we know?
Do I get to speak or not? Do I get to speak? Who's this? Are you the mask police? Can I speak or not?
We'll let you speak. Just 1 moment, please. Mr. Taub, did you have a question?
Is he in charge?
Okay. So
are you in charge?
No, Mr.
I'm
Taub.
speaking as public comment. You said at the beginning of the minute you would not be rude to people.
Enough.
Are you in charge?
Mr. Taub. Mr. Taub.
We should remove him. I mean, this is rude.
We'll start your 2 minutes now, sir.
This is not what you promised. You said if they don't wear a mask, they can't speak.
I have a mask. I can wear the mask on my head if you want. I mean, it's just, you can wear your mask on your balls.
Okay.
You don't wear the
Enough.
Get the out of here. Like wearing the mask.
Enough. We're gonna take recess for 5 minutes.
Okay. Let's put up a picture of the, it's actually a school board member that yelled that out. And then he took the microphone away from the male carrot. He literally got up and took the microphone away. I applaud the actions of this Glen Brook school board member. Joel Taub is his name, remarkable fella, obviously. Now, this is one of those townships where people are actually okay with the public health policy because they care about how the health of others, they care about how their actions impact the health of others. And so they're following the rules here. Now, there's one guy who followed the rules up until one point, right? And he even had the audacity to say, we need to remove you. Talking about a school board member who cited the fact that he's violating the policy. Well, these anti-Karens made me smile. David?
And that anti-Karen was awfully patient. I mean, it took him a little while before he finally got riled up and said, put it on your effing. Look, the fact of the matter is this particular Karen, we know that he wanted to create a scene because the way you can get something in front of a school board, you don't have to make it verbal remarks. You can put it in writing and send it to them and demand that it be part of the official record, and it will be. The fact that he wanted to speak, he doesn't have a right to speak in front of a school board. He's got to adhere to the rules. The fact that he didn't want to, this was just an effort by his part to get attention, I think.
Yeah, and just for those who are keeping note of this, and I think it's important, the facility, if there's a disability, if there's a medical condition and you cannot actually wear your mask, by the law, facilities have to then make what's called a reasonable accommodation for you. What David just mentioned is one of those reasonable accommodations, meaning you can write your complaint or whatever you want to say, and they can adopt it as part of the official record. Some school boards even allow you to call it in, and a recording is adopted as the official record. That is their way of using their opportunity for a reasonable exception for you. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
And I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
What's happening? Welcome back. We still got a lot of show. Let me read a couple of comments. I cannot read many due to time. Mike Boyd Rap says he has a medical condition that makes him too embarrassed to give speeches in a mask. You know, we did some checking. He does have a medical condition. It's called Karenicity, preventable disease, by the way. Okay. All right. Who else we got? Bardent says, Doctor, you have one of my favorite shows. I wish a Karen would. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate you saying so. Okay. 13-year-old young black child. She's arrested wrongfully because police decided not to actually investigate the crime she was being accused of. Let's put up her picture. This is all over the internet because of how these cops messed up this investigation. Nia Williams, that's her name. She was arrested after falsely being accused of threatening her school online. This is an ABC News recap of the incident. Here it is.
We turn now to a Florida teenager and her mother fighting back after someone created a fake social media account in the teen's name, leading to a nightmare that started with a school bomb threat. Here's ABC's Andrew Fajii.
This morning, a 13-year-old is speaking out after a fake Instagram account led to her being wrongly arrested.
It was scared. I was scared.
This is video of Nia Wim's arrest at her Florida school last year, accused of making threats of violence against the school on Instagram. But after further investigation, it was determined a fellow student made those threats, impersonating Wims on Instagram and setting up a fake account. That student was later arrested and charged. But in the meantime, Wims spent nearly 2 weeks in juvenile detention, time that she says scarred her.
I feel distanced, like I really don't want to talk to anybody.
She wanted to become a police officer, and now she's telling me she doesn't want to do it anymore because she feels like she was treated so badly.
Wim's family is now suing the school, Instagram's parent company Meta, and the Pembroke Pines Police Department, alleging they engaged in malicious prosecution, violated Wim's civil rights, and intentionally inflicted emotional distress.
It's a damn shame. But I want to say this to the young Nia. Don't give up on that dream because of these corrupt ass cops who chose to be negligent and not properly investigate likely because of the color of your skin. This should be a catalyst for your motivation. This is why we need people like you, Nia, inside of law enforcement to provide a proper expression of the public sentiment against this insanity that happened to you. You are empowered, okay? Let me give you some background to this. She was detained for 14 days over a false accusation. According to the family, after a fellow student impersonating her on Instagram made threats against the school, the family also filed a notice of intent to sue the Pembroke Pines Police Department over the incident. Now, the police department declined to comment on the lawsuit. In a press release, the department said that Davis blaming it on others, that Davis did not begin to cooperate with the police until December, at which time police received information that allowed it to request a subpoena for the IP addresses associated with the threatening messages. Police say their investigation showed that those IP addresses showed the threats were linked to another student who had created email addresses and Instagram accounts with Williams' name and used them to make threats against students and staff at Renaissance Charter School. Now, in their statement, the police are lying. Let me tell you where they are lying. They're trying to make you believe that the only way they can receive a subpoena for the IP addresses is by way of someone else cooperating. That's not how it works. The rules of evidence and the rules of subpoena do not work that way. The mere fact that you have to prove a case that there's a threat to a school coming from somewhere will give any cop the ability to get a judge to sign a subpoena. They're lying, trying to blame someone else. At the press conference announcing the lawsuit, Porter said that it would be naive to think that race did not play a role in this incident. When it comes to our children, law enforcement and our school officials must make sure they do their homework before they put our kids in handcuffs, Porter, the family's attorney, told NBC News Live. He also said that the police department's claim that Williams' family did not cooperate was patently false, all right? And here's the thing, doesn't require your cooperation, all right? A cop can get a subpoena for damn near anything. The fact that they released a statement trying to put it on someone else shows you the kind of culture this police department engages in. All right, David, thoughts here?
Yeah, consciousness of guilt. The fact that they would try to cover their tracks shows that they knew that they had done something wrong. Clearly, race was a factor here. Secondly, law enforcement across the United States are taught about identity theft. Identity theft happens all the time. Unfortunately, I guess it's mostly the FBI and federal law enforcement authorities who have the experience dealing with it, and a lot of local police, I guess, could care less because that's what this is. Anytime there's some sort of accusation like this, you have an obligation to chase down all the leads, do the subpoenas, to make sure that you've got the right person. The fact that this didn't happen here, I think, is clearly a sign of both the racism and the dereliction of duty that exists in that local police department.
I'm following up on the story. There's a new development. A cop shoots a therapist who's unarmed, gets prosecuted, rightfully so, and then gets convicted, and the conviction gets overturned in the Court of Appeals. Let me remind you of what happened in Florida. This was a North Miami police officer. Let me take you to that original video. Here it is. Minutes after that video ends, Mr. Charles Kinsey was shot in the leg by the officer. Let's put up a picture of Mr. Kinsey. Mr. Kinsey is a therapist. He's saying, listen, the young man next to me is autistic. He's holding a silver toy truck. He said that's all that's happening here. He keeps his hands up. He was having, the young autistic male was having a bad mental health day. Okay, that's all that's happening here. He tried to explain this thoroughly to the police. Let's put up a picture of the young man who's going through that difficult time. His name is Arnaldo Rio Soto. Mr. Soto was being shot at, okay? But Mr. Kinsey is the one who got shot. Let me give you the background to what happened here. The 3rd District Court of Appeals on Wednesday overturned the misdemeanor negligence conviction of Jonathan Loretta. Now remember, it's a misdemeanor conviction. He shot somebody and got a misdemeanor conviction. Who claimed he believed the man was holding a firearm and holding another man hostage. That's what he said. This was 6 years ago. Loretta missed and instead hit the other man, Charles Kinsey, a therapist who was lying in the street with his hands in the air. Now I want you to think about the irony of this, okay? Literally, the black man has his hands up. He's a therapist. He's explaining to the cop, don't shoot the young autistic man. He's having a bad day. That's a toy truck in his hand, all right? Because the black therapist was aware of what could happen to him. He was talking about what would happen to the autistic young male. He knew what could happen. And he's trying to explain as best as he can. And he does a good job, in my opinion, explaining the situation to the cop, all right? The Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office must now decide if they will retry this cop who was fired from the police department after the shooting. It is also considering asking the Court of Appeals for a rehearing. In a statement, the state attorney said the opinion is disappointing. That's what Rundle said. The opinion is disappointing, all right? And to all who believe that this shooting incident was unnecessary and incorrect. The court's decision made because jurors were not allowed to hear additional testimony about the police training was met with dismay by justice reformers who say it will make prosecuting bad cops even more challenging. But South Florida police unions held the opinion. Of course they did, all right? The president of the South Florida Police Benevolent Association said, and I quote, "It should have never gotten this far to begin with. We stand by Officer Loretta for a very tough decision that he had to make in seconds." No, that was not a very tough decision. Put up a picture of the cop. Okay? The prosecution argued he acted in haste, ignoring a radio dispatch from another cop who identified the toy truck was not a weapon. He ignored that. The jury acquitted him of 2 felony counts of attempted manslaughter, but convicted on a misdemeanor. They got something, didn't get it all. The Miami judge sentenced him to probation, granted him a withhold of adjudication, meaning no conviction would appear on his record. He already got a great deal. And now that minor conviction that wasn't even showing up on his record has been overturned because the system protects the cop and not the person that the cop victimized. It's unbelievable, but believable. All right, David, I'm looking at stories like this and I say, wow, even when there's a prosecution, even when the jury gets the information and the evidence, they convict on a lighter charge, the judge steps in and says, okay, jury has convicted, but I'm going to make a special move here and make sure that this conviction is never on your record. And then it goes to the Court of Appeals for the conviction that's not even on his record, and they overturn the conviction 100%.
Our justice system when it comes to cops is simply a sham. It's ridiculous. The one thing that gives me hope in all of this is because there are people like that African-American therapist who knew what the truth was and he was willing to put himself in harm's way.
Yep.
Because he knew what the cops were capable of doing. He could have, given that this guy was unarmed, he could have said, oh, I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna leave this guy, he's having a bad day on his own. He stayed there because he wanted to protect his patient. And he took a bullet to the leg as a result of that. The fact that there are people like this who understand that we all have a duty to protect one another, particularly from the tyrants in our midst and law enforcement, gives me at least some hope.
Yep. All right, so let me be very clear here. Attorney General Loretta Lynch is a sellout. Now I know you don't like to hear me talk about people like that. Let me explain to you what a sellout is. A sellout is a person who literally takes money to represent positions that are antithetical to the community who produced them. That's what a sellout is. Now the NFL has done this many times. When they are in trouble, they will then go and purchase somebody from that community. And then that person that they have purchased from that community will stand beside them and tell the community that has validated them for years, oh, there's no problem here with the NFL. There's no racism here. We're beyond kneeling. We need to just move on. Can we just ignore what they have done and just work together for some other things that are unrelated to correcting what we are here protesting about? So let me give you an update here. All right, I stand by what I said, by the way. Let's put up a picture of the former Attorney General, right? I used to have a lot of respect for this woman. In keeping with the time-honored tradition of white people accused of racism, turning to respected black folk to cover, the NFL tapped the nation's first black woman Attorney General to defend the league against former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores' racial discrimination lawsuit. So she's now representing the NFL. She is their purchased black person to represent them. Now the league has hired this big law firm that Loretta Lynch is a partner at, okay? All right. Both lawyers had pre-existing relationships with the NFL, talking about the chairman, Brad Karp, who's leading this defense as well as Ms. Lynch. Lynch worked on the investigation into discrimination and misconduct claims against the Washington football team commanders back in 2020. That investigation uncovered a chain of racist emails, which were ultimately leaked and led to the resignation of former Las Vegas Raiders head coach John Gruden. Flores, the coach, filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL, the Dolphins, New York Giants, Denver Broncos, February 1st. It accuses the league of racial discrimination for maintaining a glass ceiling. That means you can't see it. For maintaining a glass ceiling that keeps black former players and coaches from ascending to head coaching and other executive positions, and calls out the Rooney Rule, which is a BS rule meant to increase black head coaches. It didn't do that, which requires teams to interview non-white candidates for those roles. A very manipulated farce, all right? This all comes against the backdrop of a debate over whether the NFL's Black Super Bowl halftime show was a distraction from its troubles over race. And as two black men, media entrepreneur Byron Allen and a billionaire, Robert F. Smith, are either rumored or confirmed to be in the mix to buy the same Broncos team named in the Flores lawsuit. The NFL, let me be very clear, the NFL is very good about doing this. They are very good about purchasing someone and protecting their white-only power structure. Please understand, I am pissed that Miss Loretta Lynch decided to take this job. There are better jobs out here. You are a former Attorney General for the United States of America. You did not need this job. You did not need this gig. This hurts. This one hurts, all right? But this is a routine of the NFL. Let's see where it goes, all right? David, thoughts on this one?
I wish Loretta Lynch had said to the NFL, thank you for thinking of me, but I want to be the independent counsel that you're going to hire to investigate the allegations of racism. I'm not going to defend you. If the NFL had done that, said, okay, yeah, we need to investigate ourselves, then that would have been great. They might have actually had some credibility in terms of dealing with racism. But the fact that they're just using window dressing, again, as you point out, to try to somehow hide what's really going on in the NFL is a crying shame. And it also suggests to me that the NFL is not ready to change in the way that they need to.
Hail to the no, because if they were, brother, you know and I know that they would have brought in true advocates. They would have had an exacting audit, and this would be a totally different tone right now. But it's not. They're trying to protect that white power dominated ownership and head coaching atmosphere. Brother, thank you for being on the show, man. As always, how can people follow you, check out your great work?
Dr. Richey, thank you. People can check it out on Rebel HQ, which is both on Facebook and YouTube. They can get me on Twitter at David Shuster. We do videos every day, and occasionally I get lucky enough to be with you, Dr. Richey. Whether the news is good, whether the news is bad, I'm always honored to be on with you.
Well, it's always an honor to have you, my friend. Thank you. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old or 17, 18, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile. And I parked it in a place where there was 2 cars next to me, really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there because I'm a terrible driver. Back then I was an even worse driver. And on the roads I'm okay, but in parking spots, I have terrible spatial reasoning and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all 3 cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went boom, oh, and this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the 3rd car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like, I went, okay, for this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, A, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow, there's a B?
Yeah, I'm like this, I hit 3 cars, I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so 1, my bad, really sorry about that. Okay, number 2, can someone take my car out? Because I don't wanna keep hitting your cars and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot.
Now baby, move that fat, baby, move that fat.
Hi, I'm Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Hi, Brett Ehrlich here. According to EPA head Scott Pruitt, climate change is not happening. He cited a meme on Facebook he saw. When pressed to back up this source, he said it must be accurate because the watermark said it was made by a scientist. So, your move, Truth.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning and that weren't afraid to say, hey, this is something that is legitimate.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
Brent Welder is very progressive Democrat. He's a just Democrat, in fact, uncorrupted, not going to take big corporate PAC money. When did you start watching this show and when did you become a member?
So I've been watching for 10 years, an active viewer, but also more importantly, getting out there with causes like Wolfpack.
By the end of our campaign, we had organized about 22,000 individual contributions with an average about $27 a piece. And those initial people were a lot of TYT supporters as well.
In looking at the world in a very different way than corporate media does.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
Thank you to TYT and all the progressives around the country that have our backs.
You know, the first and only interviews that we had tonight to be with the Young Turks as well, because you guys have been here from the very beginning, and that's what this night is all about.
And I thank Cenk very much for the very good work that he does.
Thank you so much for all in this together, and the people are so powerful, and we're gonna get it done.
Thank you for your constant support.
It's a pleasure to be with rebels. I like that.
For all of the help that you've given to the Just Democrats, to Wolfpack, to help fellow progressives, thank you guys, to all the Young Turks members that make it possible.
Hey, this is Edwin. Most of you might recognize me, well, not me, mostly my laugh from the main show.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to get the Uygur maneuver on him.
And today, my talent is Rubik's Cubes. You gotta forgive me, it's been at least 5 years since I've competed. So that's why I'm actually going pretty slow. Watch this.
What's happening? Welcome back. We got a lot of comments. I will read a few of them for the sake of time. Mickey C, the Silverhead Dragon says 2 effing weeks before they even had proof that she was responsible. Guilty until proven innocent is horrible enough for an adult. A 13-year-old child, ? I want to say that's UFR, but as we've seen far too often, it's very real. That's right. V says, Loretta Lynch, are you kidding me right now? Wow. Yep. Loretta Lynch. I'm not kidding you. Laura Estrada, I work with autistic kids. I have nightmares about this happening. And now we need education and awareness more than ever now. My heart hurts. Shame on that court. That's right. Shame on them. Meanie 2022. Hey, we got a black woman, so we will win. What a huge stain on her legacy. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. Well, she's back. In the bullpen today, we have Miss Amber Athey, Washington editor at Spectator and co-host of O'Connor and Company on WMAL. All right, we're gonna chop it up about this freedom convoy that everybody's talking about. Amber, good day, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I don't want to presume what you know or believe about this freedom convoy. So if you would, share your sentiment and I will respond.
Absolutely. Well, I think what's happening here is that the public health officials in Canada thought that they could pressure people into getting the vaccine by making their lives as inconvenient as possible. And the truckers said, guess what? We can do that too. And they have been protesting on various streets in Ottawa for a few weeks now. I know recently they cleared the bridges. I applaud that because those were an impediment to people being able to access emergency services as well as cross the border. But right now they don't appear to be that much of a threat to the everyday lives of people outside of the ability of people to get access to goods. But that's part of what a protest is. It's about inconveniencing people, and these truckers, I think, have a righteous cause in saying that we don't need a vaccine to be able to do our jobs, and it should be a personal decision.
All right, so since you are saying that protest is about inconvenience, you agree with me then that when a Black Lives Matter protest happens in Florida and they stop traffic, that they should not be arrested and charged with a felony per the now law of Georgia signed by Governor DeSantis. You disagree with Governor DeSantis as it relates to that law because protests are to make people uncomfortable and inconvenient, correct?
Well, as I said, I do believe that protests shouldn't be blocking people's access to emergency services. And in some cases, when protests are blocking highways, for example, they do prevent ambulances and other emergency vehicles like fire trucks from getting to emergencies. And so that's a problem. But I live in DC and I will tell you that driving to work sometimes, I come across all kinds of protests downtown where streets are blocked off. You have to take alternate routes. And I respect those people's right to protest. That's part of the First Amendment. And I believe that Canadians have that right too.
Sure.
Particularly considering the truckers are protesting a mandate that applies to both their travel between Canada and the United States.
I'm going to get into that. Now, initially when you started your proclamation here, you said that basically these truck drivers are not creating a significant problem for Canadians. Well, that's not true. Not only are they creating the significant problem of disrupting commerce, as you have already noted, they are also creating the significant challenge of emergency services, and they do not care for the most part. And 11 individuals have been arrested, and many of them who were arrested were actually found to have body armor, automatic weapons, and they had a plot to kill police officers in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Well, obviously I condemn any use of violence in protest. I feel the same way about any violence that breaks out during Black Lives Matter protests. I believe in condemning violence that breaks out in Antifa protests. And again, I'm pretty consistent on the fact that I don't think access to emergency services should be blocked. Obviously, when truckers protest, it's going to be a side effect of that protest that commerce gets disrupted.
So
and without having that, right.
Let's get into the truckers' protest, because you're right, this is trucker-led. And here's the catalyst of the protest. It's not even over vaccines. What you may not know is that 91% of truckers are already vaccinated that are stationed in Canada, meaning they have a Canadian license to drive a truck. 91% of them are already vaccinated. The issue was, when you come from America or any other country, but basically America, and you are not vaccinated, and you choose to not get vaccinated, well, there's a quarantine period that Canada says must happen, okay? So you have a minority of Canadian truckers who are now involved in this protest that has created massive media content without the context of the fact that they are the minority here. They are a small minority. And the numbers have been exaggerated by pundits on the right. One pundit claimed you had 50,000 truckers. Now that's a damn lie. Another one said 20,000, another lie. You had maybe 1,000, possibly, right? So they're exaggerating the numbers, they are exaggerating the movement, and the vast majority of truck drivers in Canada already have the vaccination and adhere to the protocol. Tell me, why do you think this movement is being represented as some kind of majority movement of Canadian sentiment when that could not be further from the truth?
Well, let me tell you that just because someone is vaccinated does not mean that they support mandates. I received 1 dose of the vaccine. I got the J&J. I absolutely oppose mandates, and here's why. The vaccines don't stop you from catching or spreading the virus. They're a method of personal protection to reduce your risk of severe illness or hospitalization or death. So in that sense, it should be a personal choice. Just because the vast majority of truckers are vaccinated doesn't mean that there aren't vaccinated people protesting for the right of people to remain unvaccinated. And that doesn't mean that the rights of those 9% matter any less than the people who have already chosen to get that vaccine. And I understand the quarantine period. What these truckers are asking for is that they receive an exception for multiple reasons. One, again, the vaccine mandate does not adhere to the scientific reality of the vaccines. And number two, truckers are not interacting with very many people when they're delivering goods. For the most part, they're in their cabs for hours on hours a day and only interact during that brief transition period where they are unloading goods to storefronts. So the idea that they even need to be vaccinated because they're posing some severe risk to people in the first place is just not accurate.
You know, it is interesting. You know, we talk about something called herd immunity, right? And granted, you can never get to herd immunity just by having a silo of vaccination here or a silo of vaccination there. The reality is, in order to reach herd immunity as a species, we have to engage in this process as a human race. Now, I'm with you on the individual healthcare side. I do believe in religious as well as medical exemptions. As a matter of fact, in America, you not only have a religious exemption, and I'm talking about for professions that mandate it, you have a religious exemption, you also have a philosophical exemption, and you could obtain a medical exemption, which means it's actually not a mandate, it's a de facto protocol is what it is. But when you go to a place like Canada, remember the rule only applies to those who leave outside of Canada and come back into Canada. That's where the rule applies. And they're looking at this not from the perspective of just an individual health issue, but instead a public health crisis. And a public health crisis is an ecosystem of healthcare that includes the weight that you place on your local emergency services and hospitals. Let me give you an example. Well, Omicron hit America. I'm on the board of directors of a major hospital. Well, Omicron hit. Omicron was 5 times more infectious than the previous variants, right? But it was less harmful based on the observable science. What did that mean? That meant that more people were going to the hospital than ever before, even from the first, more so than the first variant of COVID. They were going to the hospital because they were tested positive for COVID, right? What was happening? That meant people inside of that hospital that needed other services as it relates to cancer, as it relates to HIV/AIDS, as it relates to emergency heart conditions. Well, they could not be seen because hospitals did not have the capacity. That's why this is a public health issue. 88% of everyone who was hospitalized in the state of Georgia for COVID did not have a COVID vaccine. That's the public health narrative. That's the reason why you cannot only apply the lens of individual healthcare. Do you get my point here?
I do understand your point. However, I do find it interesting that COVID-19 seems to be the only public health issue that we tell people that they're not allowed to come to the hospital at a certain rate because they could overwhelm hospitals. We don't do that during flu season or other potential public health crises where people are going to the hospital at very high rates.
That's actually not true. That's not true. Hospitals will routinely place a temporary protocol if they have found there to be high infections of the flu or other viruses.
But they don't require people to go and get a flu shot, right?
Well,
so
no.
there is a fundamental
and even if you have a shot, no. Even if you have a shot, the protocol of that hospital does not change. Remember, they're dealing with it from the perspective of a public health crisis. And
right, so that's my point. We don't require people to go get a flu shot because hospitals could become overrun. We still allow people to make that choice based on their individual risk factors. And let me take your point about the religious and medical exemption.
Okay, so let me respond to that before you get to that. Let me respond to that. Naturally, we're still observing a very new virus in America. We get to sit back and pontificate about the decision of schools and the decision of colleges and healthcare facilities and companies. But science means observing the data as it comes. I would prefer for institutions to be careful, to be on the side of caution as it relates to our interpretation and observation of this particular virus. We have observed the flu virus for decades in the United States and beyond. We have studied it, we understand how it interacts. This is a very new virus. So I understand why someone would make a decision to go all the way to the cautious end of the spectrum rather than play Russian roulette with the lives of others. I'm okay with that decision. I'm not mad at it. Now, as we continue to learn more information, the policy should change. And it seems to me that the disconnect between my conversation and your conversation, I'm talking about the sides we represent, is that you're saying we have observed it enough, and I'm saying we have not observed it enough. And I think you and I would probably agree when this thing first happened, we really needed to implement protocols to restrict travel and restrict other behavior until we figure more out. So you and I probably started on the same exact wavelength when this thing first hit. Am I right on that?
You are right. I definitely understood the need for precautions early on. And what I find troublesome now is that we seem to be taking more precautions and being overly cautious with the virus and less so with potential long-term effects of the vaccine. And we're not allowing people to make decisions based on the potential side effects there, and not allowing them to be cautious before they get this vaccine that's only been on the market for a couple of years. I understand the science has been around for a long time, but we were told initially, for example.
Come on now, even when people say that, right? The vaccine has been around for a couple of years. For lack of a better word, ingredients of the vaccine have been around for over 20 years, and they've been tested.
The science for the mRNA vaccines has been around for a long time, as I just said. But here's the problem. Here's one perfect example of why people have a right to be cautious about the vaccine. As a woman, I was very concerned about potential effects of fertility. The FDA and all three vaccine companies, when the vaccines were first approved through emergency use authorization, said that there was no evidence that the vaccines were affecting women's menstrual cycles. Go forward a year after everyone starts to get these vaccines, and they admit that there is a slight temporary change to women's menstrual cycles, which, as we know, are inextricably linked to our fertility. So if that's something that we can find out just in the span of a year, I think it's reasonable for people to say, I want to wait and see what other effects could potentially come down the line from these vaccines. But you can't do that if your job is being threatened because of a vaccine mandate.
All right, I got you. I'm with that. We have a few minutes. We have like 2 minutes before the next show. I get that sentiment, and I agree with your personal health decision. That's your personal health decision. You don't have to work in every industry. For example, if you work in healthcare, 80% of Canadians, it's over 80% in America, they believe you need to be vaccinated, okay? Almost 100% of people believe you need to wear a mask. You need to protect yourself and others if you are working in healthcare fields, even for the federal government and health-related jobs. That's common sense public health practice. But you literally have a push back against those common sense practices by movements like this that are wholly linked to white supremacists. And that's a caveat to this conversation.
Sorry, what?
But they are. The Freedom Convoy is linked to white supremacists who have been arrested on the record. You didn't know that?
Well, would you say that Black Lives Matter protests have been linked to Black nationalists and anti-Semites? Because there have been a lot of members of Black Lives Matter. By the way, a member of Black Lives Matter was just arrested down in Louisville, Kentucky for trying to shoot up a Jewish mayoral candidate. Do you then denounce all BLM?
Yeah. Let's do this. I denounce anybody who commits criminality against human beings, period. Now, let's be very clear about the issue of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, the organizers, those that are involved, because I've actually marched with Black Lives Matter, I work with Black Lives Matter, they are adversarial to those criminal elements.
They just bailed him out of jail, Dr.
Wait a minute, sister, on the other side, and I'll research that story, that's not a problem, I'll definitely do that. But on the other side, we're literally talking about a freedom convoy here, where you've had 11 individuals arrested. The vast majority of them had body armor and weapons and ready to kill police officers. And they have not been even criticized by those on the right, nor have they been called out by the organizers of the Freedom Convoy. And you have an openly racist leader of the Freedom Convoy who's all over Canadian social media using racial slurs against Black people, against Muslims, against others. And they are embraced. They are embraced by the Freedom Convoy. They are not rejected as individuals who subscribe to some movement in Black Lives Matter. People in Black Lives Matter will reject you if you are a criminal. That's not happening on the right.
Well, I would like to see evidence that they actually embrace those individuals, because when I heard about it, I immediately condemned it. But Black Lives Matter,
where did you condemn it? Let me ask you, where did you condemn it? Can I find it on social media?
At the beginning of the show, when you asked me about it.
You said you condemned it immediately. My show is not immediate. Did you condemn it on social media?
I just learned about the people being arrested on your show, and
so I'm going to look at your social media later today, and I want to see if you're willing to condemn them on the record. Will you do that?
This is on the record.
All right, will you do that on your social media?
I don't allow people to tell me what I can and can't tweet. I condemned it right here on the show. That is enough for me.
You're afraid. I appreciate you being on the show, though. Thank you so much.
All right, condemn the bail. Condemn the bail.
Yeah. All right. Make sure. Stay for reactions. All right, well, Rayvana, make sure to take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.